Hi everyone. So just a couple of examples of how to solve one-step equations and then checking with the left side, right side check. You'll find this sheet that I'm looking at right now on your workspace. It's the second home practice that's on the list. The first home practice is a good one to tackle too. This one's pretty clear, and if you follow along with me, I'm sure you're going to be successful. You ready? Here we go. So there isn't a lot of space to work actually within these little boxes, so if you feel you want to work on a separate piece of paper, that's fine. I'm actually going to work just below this particular side on the solve column. So if we're looking at x take away 9 equals 13, lots of us can do this in our brains. However, let's get through the practice of working through this particular equation by solving for x and then checking. So we know that whatever we do on the left side, we have to do on the right. So we know that x take away 9, in order to isolate the x, we're going to add 9 more. This is a strategy that I like to use. So just underlining or even highlighting the numbers that you're adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing on each side will help you to keep in line or in check with what you're working on. We've isolated the x, so that means x stands alone, poor x. And we now know that x is equal to 22. A left side, right side check is simply this. Always writing that equation again, being sure that you copy exactly as you see it, right? Sometimes we end up with some errors when we copy it using different numbers or a different order of numbers. X take away 9 equals 13. Awesome. We know that x equals 22. We're going to still take away 9, and we're going to hope that it equals 13. I think we did pretty great, guys. So 13 does equal 13, which means that the left side is definitely equal to the right side. Sometimes using the LS equals RS, or left side equals right side, letters here, it helps me to know that my solving and my checking is done. Okay, let's tackle a trickier one. So just on the right hand side, we have x over 8, or x divided by 8, is equal to 1 and 4/10. I don't really have a lot of space to work here, so what I'm going to do is actually just slide this down and work on top, okay? So we know that x divided by 8 is equal to 1 and 4/10. Let's solve this out. We know that the inverse operation of multiplication is division. And on the flip side, we know that the inverse operation of division is multiplication. Just because we're here, why don't we try this? Addition, inverse or opposite operation is to take away, or subtraction. Subtraction, the inverse, is addition. If we have these particular ones down pat in our brains, we're sure to be successful. So let's give this a try. If we know that we're dividing here, I know that the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So I know that because this number is in the denominator, that we're going to have to multiply by 8. So maybe, as I'm solving along, my equation might look a little something like this. And don't forget that whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. Don't complicate things, right? You don't have to change anything. So I'm going to multiply by 8 on the left side, which is going to isolate x or leave x alone. Then I just need to solve for 1 and 4/10 times 8. And a really quick little check tells me that this is 11 and 2/10. All right, let's go back to the left side, right side check then. If we know that x is equal to 11 and 2/10, my left side, right side check would look something like this. Always get in the habit of writing that equation down again. Again, if you don't have a lot of room in this particular little box, use a separate sheet of paper. It's just for practice, remember. So let's fill this one in. 11.2, or 11 and 2/10 divided by 8, is equal to 1.4. And I'm pretty sure we're correct. 1.4 is equal to 1.4. Left side, right side. This isn't ideal. I really prefer your answers to be in a row just like this. So don't try and squish your numbers into one little box. Next time that I make a sheet like this, I'll try and make it a lot larger for you. But again, this is just for practice. Okay, another tricky one. Let's have a peek at this one. Now, so far we've talked a little bit about inverse operations in terms of simple operations like multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. We also know that when we square, the inverse operation to that is a square root, right? So let's have a look and see if we can tackle this question. So x squared is equal to 64. Many of us that know our facts off by heart, or maybe if we've used a multiplication table, can very quickly find the answer to this. But I want you to use your brains and get into the habit of creating this beautiful flow. So we know that the inverse operation of squaring is going to be square root. So we're going to have our x inside, and we're going to do the same thing on the right-hand side, okay? So we're just using that beautiful root symbol on each side. This isolates x, leaves x all by itself. And we know that the square root of 8, it's a beautiful perfect root, or of 64, sorry, is 8. I got ahead of myself. Let's fill this in. So again, we'll write that equation down. X squared is equal to 64. 8 squared is equal to 64. Guys, I think we did it. And we did. So we have a left side equal to the right side. Okay, I'm gonna pop over to this side too, okay? Let's have a look at this one. 7x is equal to 56. Now remember, when you see a number and a beautiful little variable side by side, we know that multiplication is the operation that's happening. We also know that the inverse of multiplication is division. So let's give this a try. Again, don't change anything, right? We're just going to be adding the operation that we're using to isolate x. So I know that I need to get this 7 out of the left-hand side, which is why I chose this number 7. So we're dividing by 7 on each side. X stands alone. And we know that 56 divided by 7 is 8. Using a calculator to double check is always a good idea. Let's fill this in, okay? So substituting the x for what we have solved on this side. So we know that x is 8. And I think we did it. Right? So we have the left side equaling the right side. Okay. So I think the rest of the questions, my friends, you can tackle those on your own. There's a couple of tricky ones, particularly when you get close to the end of the page. Exercise your brain to get yourself thinking about what you could do in this particular situation. We do have some squared numbers. We also have multiple operations on each side. Think about what you would do to solve this. Good luck. And check out the workspace for the solutions to this particular worksheet in the next little bit.